The issue around what I call a clinical master's degree, most of the profession calls it an entry-level master's degree, but in medical circles we really prefer the term clinical master's degree. This debate has actually been going on for a number of years. If we go back to the first education task force, I believe came out in 1996, the notion of creating an option for the entry-level master's degree was first embedded within that document. Since that time, it has really grown into something a little bit more than its initial purpose. If we look at the global healthcare landscape, we have to think about the professional preparation of athletic trainers within that context first and foremost. Everything that surrounds education should ultimately be linked back to the ability to provide better patient outcomes in healthcare, and I think that's a piece that we can't miss in this right now. So as we link this debate about the clinical master's degree to better outcomes for our patients, we then have a very complex issue. Honestly, I don't think that this is an easy debate to have, but as we have this conversation nationally, we ultimately have to go back and frame it in that context and not get lost in the logistics of, if we do this, then what's going to happen. We have to look at what our ultimate goal is as a profession, and that's to improve the practice of athletic training.
I've been in the profession for 30 years now, and I would say the best way to kind of categorize my position is a bit conflicted. I think in the discussion we have to look at how this would affect our students. That's one of the things as a program director I'm very sensitive to. We have to look at the economic sides of things. We have to look at how we're positioned within the healthcare arena. Are our students going to be able to go out and be competitive and not have a student loan debt that's going to basically have them disadvantaged for a long period of time. So that's where I struggle with it. The place where I don't have any problem with, and I think that that's where the people who advocate for the change to a master's level entry point is, there's no question that if you take students that have completed all of their undergraduate requirements, all of the prerequisite education and training, and bring them into the profession at that point after 4 years, or if possibly it's a 3-2 model, if you bring them in at that point, I think it's logical to to assume that we can do more with those students, and we can improve the patient care delivered to our athletes and other physically active patients that we work with. So I think that's I would say that I'm conflicted, and some of that is based on the economics of the situation, but from a professional standpoint, I don't think that there's any question that when we look at our peers, when we look at other healthcare professions and where they are, the entry-level master's entry point deserves some very serious consideration.
My personal opinion in this, and why I think the clinical master's degree is beneficial for us, one, I'll speak from experience in running a clinical master's degree for 7 years. Prior to my current appointment, I saw firsthand the difference in teaching that type of student had in our patient outcomes. Do I have strong data to support what those patient outcomes are? I don't, but I can tell you that a more mature student is more committed to the profession. They've already chosen this as their career. They come in with a higher level of intellectual curiosity, which allows us to take them to a different level in the way that they treat their patients. In my role currently, we're in the process of transitioning from a bachelor's degree to a master's degree. And there's a level of excitement that surrounds that. The public understands that. We're in a school of health sciences with other healthcare professionals, and from their perspective, it's kind of, well, it's about time. You're our peers.
That's the nature of the argument of kind of which one helps us prepare providers to give the best patient care. That's the fundamental bottom line. And what happens with the argument is everyone says, well, if we did this, then that. So we keep getting hamstrung by the what ifs and what happens if you make the change. So we are really trying to focus the argument on the central question of how do we prepare the best clinician. And we're trying less to focus on what happens when you do it, if you change the degree, for example, to the master's degree level. And we're trying to answer the question of, can we get better students? Can we prepare people who want to be in the profession? Can we decrease the chance that someone will say, I want to get my Bachelor of Science in athletic training and then go on to become a different type of healthcare provider? So I think all of those questions become germane to not only patient outcome but also professional longevity. Things that we want to look at are what happens to salaries, for example. We want to look at what happens to our ability to develop professionals for the workforce. Would we have fewer graduates or more graduates? When you graduate fewer people, does demand get higher and salaries increase? I don't know some of those, and some of those we can't actually know. All the professional programs that we have, there's 27 at the master's degree level. So given the wide disparity in numbers, it's really hard to get data on outcomes because there's so few of them. I think a profession as a whole, it will position us better to align with other healthcare professions. It will position us better at the national level in order to be able to say we're on par with these other groups that are seeking reimbursement, for example. And it gives us a seat at the academic table, I think, as well. So there are many issues that it raises as well, though, and I don't think we can ignore those. Some institutions won't be able to do it because they can't support baccalaureate or master's level education. That's going to be a problem, and we have to weigh that against the advantages, and I think that's always one of the concerns with such major shifts. I think we also have to look at, do patient outcomes actually improve? Is it better education? And that's a question we have to try to answer. I think we also have to say, we have to get information on how many of our graduates now from baccalaureate programs continue to practice as athletic trainers versus how many graduates of entry-level master's programs continue to practice as athletic trainers. I think what we'll see anecdotally, definitely, is that if students opt to go into a master's degree, that they tend to stay in the profession.
Where it goes next, I think, is, at a meeting like this, we're at the Educators Conference, I think that we need to discuss it more broadly with the educators, but not just the educators, all of the other members, because this touches on how they practice, how their practice will be affected, and we need to hear from them so that as we implement it, we've already thought about some of the strategies and solutions, and some of those discussions have already taken place, but without talking to them, we don't know what other challenges might lie ahead and how we can best prepare ourselves for it.
The ECE has a commitment right now to put together a working group. Jolene Henning and I are actually going to run it. We're going to put a call out for experts in the area who have strong and validated opinions on the issue to come together and say, let's figure out and lay it out on paper once and for all, the pros and cons, because I really think we need to examine the issue critically so that whatever decision is made, we're making it from an informed position. So right now the ECE intends to put together this working group. It's going to be quick and fast. Our goal is to have something to the board of directors by June for them to chew on. We intend to work with our strategic partners on this, so they're part of the conversation, because it never helps to bring them, it's never good to bring them in at the end, and we are very lucky to have great work with the BOC, the CATIE, and the Foundation. So we envision we are going to have this very quick but thorough approach to getting on paper the pros and cons of staying at the baccalaureate level as a requirement or transitioning to the master's.